I want to thank everyone for coming today. This book that has been written is truly to honor all of you who have come. Some of you heard me say some of this earlier, but I'm going to repeat myself. I hope it's okay. I'm Dr. Debbie. Many of you are my patients, and I'm honored that you're here today. This day is really for all of you, and it's about all of you. I would like to mention that this book could have been 7,000 patients in it. But we had to pick a quick 40, and we have a quick 40, but each and every one of you really are part of this project in your own stories that are so important. I want to tell you that some of my patients have come today from as far away as Arizona, Pennsylvania, Indiana, Ohio, and northern Michigan. And if I haven't mentioned your state, I apologize, but I'm grateful that you're here today. It's a day I want to celebrate for you, and I'm going to mention the 32 of the 47 who are in the book who have come today. And I will mention your names. Holly Bellion, Brandy Case, Mari Clower, Michelle Darman, Carla, Vanessa, Victoria, Austin, Alexis Stokel, Carl Fanceal, Doris Fouth, Joanne Gazelle, Glenn Heber, Joe Horvath, Sue and Timothy Lee, Jan Homan, Diane March, David McClellan, Carolyn Monaco, Victoria Pace, Julie Peterson, Brian Roth, Vicki Schweller, Susan Scheimer, Joan Smith, Dr. Susan Stoika, Karen Zakari, and Carolyn Zaccarino. And I want to thank Sherry Brantley, who I'm not wanting to cover. And Sherry is here from Arizona. And my husband, Dr. Mark Rosner, who really made this dream of a book come true for all of us today. I thought the story should really start from where it began. And it began with Dr. Arthur Rosner. So Arthur is my brother-in-law, and Val is here. Raise your hand, Val. We were double dating 27 years ago. 27 years ago, Arthur was in the back seat, as he describes. I forgot that he was in the back seat. But I must have been looking in the mirror to see what he was doing. He was holding up a loose prism in front of one of his eyes. I asked him, Arthur, who gave that to you? He said, I was given it in medical school to help me. I said, did it help? He said, not the best. I said, let me examine your eyes. Maybe I can help you. So I examined his eyes. In fact, he needed prism. He did beautifully with it, although I never knew how beautifully until about 10 years passed. I saw him every year, but 10 years passed where he was thinking a lot, brainstorming, light bulb going off, and he called me. He said, Debbie, he's an ear, nose, and throat doctor, if I didn't mention. He sees dizzy patients. So he called me, said, Debbie, I need to send you some dizzy patients. I said, why would you do that? What would I do with them? He said, I think you're going to help them. I said, how? He said, the way you helped me. So it began this journey of having this population of patients coming in, having symptoms I didn't know I could even do anything about, and these patients responding really, really well to this prismatic correction. So fast forward, 500 patients moved into the Birmingham office. I have a brain injury patient in my chair. Didn't even know what TBI meant in those days, traumatic brain injury. I'm helping this patient with their post-concussive symptoms, dizziness, imbalance with walking. I'm thinking, boy, they sound a lot like Arthur's patients. They sound the same. I'm helping them with Prism. I have a case manager in the room, and she said, I need for you to give me that pamphlet. I need to send it to the brain injury doctor in Ann Arbor. I said, okay, that would be fine. I get a call the next day from Jennifer Doble, will you raise your hand? So Jennifer calls me and she says, Debbie, you just helped my patient, by the way. I think I need to see you. I said, okay. So she came. She needed Prism. She put on her tag 10 Prism diopters. She's proud. She has 10 Prism diopters. Most of you have about 2, by the way, split between the 2 eyes. She has 10. So Jennifer did beautifully, and she said, Debbie, I think I need to send you my brain injury patient. So I said, okay, what would I do with them? And she says, the way you help me. So you see the ENT, you see the head injury doctor, this pattern. So fast forward, it's about 7,000 patients. And even for me to say that number is hard to believe. We have moved into this office just 2 years ago, and we're already feeling the constraints of this space. So let's now back up 10 years ago. I used to say to my husband, we need to write a book. I'm so tired of this suffering. And I hear these stories every day. We cry and we smile. And we pull out the tissue because we're happy that we're better, but we're sad that we suffered. And I thought, if the walls of my exam room could talk, maybe somebody would listen. And so it is here today that I'm so happy to tell you, and Sherry will tell you how it came about, that another serendipitous moment on an airplane. So,
okay.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so I have the dubious honor of being patient one in there. As I talk to people in the other room who are actually in the book itself, as I mentioned, they're kind of my heroes because they've, like salmon, swimming upstream to get here. They went through the system and were told, nothing wrong, you must be crazy, take some psych drugs, go away, and had a myriad of other diagnoses that didn't get them there. My short part of the story was the book, other people heard it, let me just refresh a little bit. I had gone and I got some glasses that didn't fit right, and I would fall downstairs and walk into parking meters and street signs and see double, and was told there was nothing wrong, just suck it up. And I ended up seeing the chairman at the University of Michigan who was kind of telling me the same thing, had his foot out the door and one hand on the door handle, and I called him back in and said, there's something wrong with my glasses. He goes, well, you're just a dumb medical student. What do you know that I don't know? And I said, well, I can tilt my glasses and make the headache go away. It's got to be something with my eyes. Being a young scientist, you figure those things out. So that's when I was given a handheld prism, and then you heard the story that went from there. We've had lots of challenges overway. The rest of the medical community really doesn't believe in this yet. They're starting, but there's still a lot of pushback from the ophthalmologists and optometrists. And some of it has to do with manpower. Most ophthalmologists don't believe that the eyes cause dizziness or headaches. They also don't have the time to spend a half a day with you to make sure the glasses are right. Most optometrists, as Debbie's talked about, don't have the training. So you say, we want you to take care of sick people with disability papers and barf bags and walkers and referral letters and bill medical insurance. They're looking at like, what are you talking about? We didn't learn anything about that. And so there'll have to be a whole group of people that get trained to do this. It's fun to see. It's kind of like watching a child grow up or a seed grow into a plant. We started this 20 years ago. And, the people who've been involved with this have all done this after hours. This has been funded with our own time, sweat, whatever. No one's gotten paid to do this with the after hours work. I put in probably 2,000 hours. Mark's probably put in same. Debbie probably close. Dr. Doble a whole bunch. And so, as I tell people what I do, I said, well, I'm an ears, nose, and throat physician. I'm double boarded in sleep. And my hobby is doing research in visual causes of dizziness and headaches, which is this. There are lots of people involved that have done this. The people with their stories will hopefully get other people that are there. Someone who took a lot of effort after hours from her full-time job to go ahead and write a book on the topic. Just things for people in there to let you know where we are. Medically, we do have some research going on with parts of the ear called the utricle. I believe that has a lot to do with VH. As I mentioned in the other room, I also think there still needs to be work done on the orthopedic side dealing with physical therapy, chiropractic, massage, because a lot of the vertical heterophoria patients, they walk around with their head tilted a little bit, and even though you straighten it out with prism, the muscles and spine probably don't get all the way back to normal. And one of the questions I ask is when people get better and you give them a vision questionnaire, they get their prism lenses and they're 50 to 80% better. I'm the troublemaker. I'm like, well, what about the other 20% that's there? And so I'm wondering whether or not if we do some stuff to the neck and spine, whether we can get better. So that's looking forward to the future. I think we're going to give this over to Sherry, who's the one who actually put all this together in her after hours, just like all the rest of us.
Thank you so much, Dr. Rosner. First of all, I want to say that I really appreciate how candid and intimate the interviews were that all of the patients were able to have with me. None of you guys have met me yet. You knew nothing about me, but you were really honest and open about what you had been through, what your experiences were, how you had been told that it was all in your head, you were crazy, how you had been medicated. And a lot of you did want to give up hope, but there was something in you saying just one more try, maybe one more doctor might be able to make the difference for me. What I wanted to share with you is, as Dr. Rosner was saying, it was very serendipitous the way we met. I'm originally from Michigan, but I now live in the Arizona area. And I have now for the last 7 years. And I happened to be on a plane from Arizona coming to Michigan to visit family and friends. Now, you have to understand that Dr. Rosner, who's married to Dr. Debbie Feinberg, he's very persistent. So he sat next to me on the plane, and I was already going in my mind, you know, how many family members I'll be able to visit. You have to travel to different cities, and I'm like, this is just going to be overwhelming. And he started talking to me about this vertical heterophoria, which of course I knew nothing about, never heard anything about it, anything like that. And he saw that I sometimes tilted my head. And so he started giving me this survey verbally. And he's asking me things like, you know, do you get anxious when you're in crowds? And I'm thinking, maybe I just don't like people. Do you have double vision? Do you get headaches and things like that? And I found myself going, yeah. And by the time I got to the 6th, yes, I'm thinking to myself, wait a minute, I don't know this guy. Why am I giving him all this information? So he said to me, he started telling me about the difference that Dr. Debbie was able to make with her patients in the clinic. And he said, how long are you going to be in Michigan? And I just happened to have a 10-day stretch that I was going to actually be visiting during that particular time period. And so I told him that, and he said, do you mind if I have my wife come back here and talk to you, and she can tell you really about how it is, how she works with the patients? And I'm thinking, if she's less persistent than you, yeah. That'll work. So they switched seats. And Dr. Debbie came, and she told me about all the work she was doing. And they both could tell I was kind of skeptical because, you know, you say people come in with a cane or a wheelchair, and they're walking out, and I'm going, okay, yeah, that sounds good. And she said, we really would just like to get this information in a book. And I said, oh, I just happen to be an author of 5 books so far, and that sounds like a project I can probably, you know, take a look at. And so they said, do you have any time where you can come by and take a look and see what she does? And I actually wound up going 2 days during the time that I was in Michigan that time. So it was a few family members I didn't see, but that was fine. But I was able to actually see and talk to some of the patients, and I'm gonna tell you guys, I couldn't believe it. I literally could not believe the difference that she was able to make with the patients that had come in. And some of the patients that had talked to me were past patients of hers, so they told me about all the other ordeals that they had gone through prior to finding out about vertical heterophoria and what it was. So one of the things that I did share with some of you when I interviewed you was that I too had quite a few problems that I'd never ever saw as problems. Now, most of you probably would. If you're walking down the hall and you're knocking paintings off the wall, you might think that's a problem. I just figured I'm just walking too close to the wall. And then I also had a problem with getting on escalators. And I didn't know it at the time, but of course it had to do with my depth perception, but especially if I was in the airport, because then you've got a suitcase. Were you there when I fell down the stairs at the airport, Heather? Oh, okay. So anyway, I'm going up the escalator. I'm always nervous about it because you got to get your suitcase on one step, and then you've got the step, and then you got to hold the rail. And one time I was trying to do all of that and coordinate it and fell backwards in the airport with my suitcase and all. So, of course, the security came over, and they were like, do you want to fill out a report? I said, yeah, an embarrassment one, okay? No, I'm okay. Just let me get on my plane. So it were a lot of things that they brought up to me that I hadn't even realized were problems. Now, the funny thing about this is, after I'd gotten my examination, and they sent me the glasses, because remember, I'm from Arizona, so I wasn't able to stay to actually have the glasses, you know, to take them back with me. About a month after I had been wearing them, I got called into my supervisor's office. And he didn't know I had gone to Michigan and got glasses or knew anything about vertical heterophoria or anything like that. And he said, I got some exciting news for you. And I'm like, a bonus? He said, no, but whatever you're doing, continue to do, because your error rate has dropped dramatically. I didn't even know I had an error rate, okay? So it was really nice to be able to do that. And just so you know, I work for a mutual fund company, and we work 11-hour days. So I worked 4 days a week, 11-hour days. And when I first met Dr. Rosner, and he asked me how long would it take to do the book, I said 2 weeks. It'll be 2 weeks. Send me the patients' names, I'll do the interviews, we'll put it in the book, and we'll get it online. And he goes, it might take a little bit longer than that. And I was like, no, I talk fast, and I'll just tape it, and we'll get it together. 18 months later, after working with all of you, because we had the 3-hour time difference from Arizona and sometimes 2 hours, and coordinating your schedules and your families with you and all of that. But it was such a beautiful project for me to be a part of, and I really feel it was a pleasure and a privilege to have worked with all of you. And I don't want to just address the patients. Sometimes your spouses talked with me. Sometimes your kids had to kind of be quiet while you did your interview. It's a lot of work with a lot of people, and we really appreciate all of you being a part of this project. It's a lot bigger than what any of us ever thought it would be, and I'm sure as Dr. Debbie has said, the book has legs, and so we will be able to get this information out to all of the important people, and everyone's important, but I mean the media, the doctors, the optometrists, and other people that they're planning to train, so that this work not only gets the information that needs to be out, but other people who may have symptoms of vertical hydrophobia are able to recognize that or recognize it in their family members. And then I didn't want to stay too long, but another part that I would like to be interested in is that, of course, this isn't recognized through the health care facilities as far as insurance goes. And a lot of families, these glasses and doing the exams can be pretty expensive. So part of that piece is to be able to include that with your health care that you have at work and other places, because they do have vision and they just haven't recognized vertical hydrophobia. So we do have a ways to go. But as Dr. Arthur Rosner has said, since we have both of them here today, I hope that we'll be able to see major differences in our lifetime. And I really think, as Dr. Mark Rosner has said, that with today's technology, we do have the resources available to be able to make that difference and be able to get that push out there and get the word out there so that it is nationally known. Thank you. And I don't know if all of you guys heard Dr. Debbie. What she wanted me to share was some of the emotional connections that I made with the patients here, because some of the stories were so heart-wrenching that sometimes when I would listen to the tape so that I can transcribe it, I would just stop it and cry. And I was about to cry I was crying today when Joe Horvath was reading his piece, because I even talked to people that I work at and that I work with in Arizona, and they're like, how could these people have been that debilitating, and glasses make that much of a difference? But when people aren't able to go to drive and they no longer are able to work, and as Carl Fansel was saying, they lose their job, their house, sometimes your marriage falls apart, all these time goes by and you don't know what's really wrong with you. People are telling you it's you, you're imagining things. It was just hard for me to hear. And for some of the older patients who where years ago none of this information was available and we didn't have the technology that we have, they were mislabeled as, just being lazy students who did not want to read. Just the difference that it would have made for them had this information been available when they needed it, and had other people been trained to recognize that and be able to diagnose it. And even with the patients who told me I had prism glasses and they didn't work for me, and so why would, when I was told about what vision specialist does, why would I have thought that would make a difference? But it does make a difference. You have to be able to have a doctor that knows how to work with vertical hydrophobia and how to work with the prisms and how to do the minute, accurate testing that needs to be done in order for each of you to be able to have exactly what you need so that your symptoms can either be eliminated or, decreased some. So it was very heartbreaking and heart-wrenching for me, but I enjoyed every moment of this project. We're talking with all of you, getting to hear your stories, and I'm so happy that I get to see you face to face. I really appreciate that. And now I'm going to turn it over to Mark Rosner, Dr. Mark Rosner.
Thank you. Thank you, that was great. So as has already been mentioned, you know that I'm already really pretty shy and introverted. So I'll do the best I can to try and tell you what I'm going to tell you next. But it's really been a lot of fun to be associated with this project. By training, I'm an emergency physician. So we cover the entire body. So the eyeball covers less than 1% of the real estate that I'm kind of responsible for. So being involved with eyes and doing research on eyes, this is really quite a step away for what I do. Having said that, it's fascinating because it's all cutting edge, it's cool stuff. And this is something that, in a medical career you hope for, with all the training we've had, is to discover something that can really make a difference in somebody's life. In my setting in the emergency department, I occasionally get to save lives. And it doesn't happen every day. I'm pretty jaded about, how much difference did I really make. You get somebody in and they've got pneumonia and they're pretty sick, and we give them antibiotics and some oxygen, and, they start to feel a little bit better, and they come in the hospital for a few days and they convalesce over 2 weeks, and then they get better. That's mostly what I do, things like that. With Debbie, they come into this office here and they're sick. They're really miserable. And within 20 minutes of getting the application of the lenses, they don't really feel anywhere between a third and a half way better. In my side of the business, we call that a miracle. And it's really cool. So this place to me is just a little miracle factory and seems to do this on a routine basis. So to be involved with something that can be disseminated like this would be, it's a dream for anybody who's involved in medicine. And I'm really fortunate to be involved with this. I want to use the rest of my time to, first of all, thank you all for participating with the projects, those of you that are in the book. We appreciate your time because this is an opportunity now to get the information out to the rest of the world and let them try and figure out and catch up with where we are. But we're just one center, and we really are the only place in the world that's doing it to this degree and to this level at this point in time. And it just can't stay that way. This information is too important. We guess that it impacts anywhere between 5 and 10% of the population. That's globally. So there's millions and millions of people that are impacted by this. And it's really impacting their life, and it changes the way they live their life. Sometimes they're labeled as ADD or reading disabled in the beginning, and they never get a fair start. Sometimes they end up having problems later on with headaches and dizziness, and they get disabled and they can't work, and they have trouble being parents. So with that in mind, this work is really important to disseminate. So I'm going to try and recruit all of you. We talked earlier about the fact that you are our heroes and that you didn't give up and you kept looking for care and you finally found the care. What?
I have so always wanted to do that. I'm a traumatic brain injury rehabilitation doctor in Ann Arbor, and I came to Debbie as a patient because I couldn't find an eye doctor that could get my glasses right, and some idiot ophthalmologist put prism in one lens, and it made me worse. And so anyways, I learned a lot from Debbie and then started referring her my brain injury patients. So I'm not going to go a whole lot further than that. I'm just going to say I'm really honored to be here. And I was going to tell you, you'll notice in every chapter of the book, the way Sherry wrote it so eloquently, is that you all refer to Dr. Debbie as Dr. Debbie. And I have one foot in academia and one foot in my office and with my patients. And my physicians, who are mostly ignorant of vertical heterophoria, hear stories about the emotional process and journey that you've all been through, and they think it's hunky-dory, stupid stuff, that stuff on the fringe that doesn't really count as real medicine. So when I edited my foreword, I had to put Debbie in their white lab coat frame of a title so that I could really elevate her for where we need to go with the message and with all of this information. So that was, I don't even think I told you why I changed that, but I feel as emotional about it as all of you do. And I can't wait to see patients back after I've referred them to Debbie. And it's always such a wonderful visit, and hugs and tears and those trial frames that people are wearing.
I will share with you with Dr. Doble, but we've spoken at brain injury conferences many times, and one of the most beautiful things she thought of is, she was holding the cane, I thought she was going to go there with the cane, is she says, we give orthotics to people to level their leg length, to alignment. She said, Debbie, this prism, not me, all of my colleagues, this prism is like a visual orthotic. We're aligning their world, we're aligning the images, it gives them their sense of balance, it gives them a sense of where they are in space, and they're not overwhelmed anymore. And when Arthur and I were starting to write this questionnaire that now is going to be published as a validated tool, he said, Debbie, ask them, are they overwhelmed in big spaces? I said, why would I ask them that? He said, because they all are. I said, okay then. So we asked that, and I cannot tell you how many patients say, I don't like the malls, I don't like those big open, those tall stores like the Costco. So I was a psych minor in college. I didn't share this with you, but when I first started working with this population, and they were wearing the prism, they would say, I feel so calm. And I said, really? And they said, yeah, I feel really relaxed. Did you give me Xanax? I said, what? I don't have any pills. And they said, but I feel like something you did released my tension and my anxiety. And here I am, a psych minor, thinking, wow, this is really interesting. So I would come home, I'd say to my husband, Mark, he's my questionnaire and data guy. Add anxiety. I got to ask them about their anxiety because they all have it. So we now track it. As you know, when you come in, I say, how are your headaches, dizziness, nausea, imbalance with walking, light sensitivity, and anxiety. And so many of you have really become calmer because the world isn't a scary place to navigate in, and you know where you are in space. And we did a paper, I don't know if we've shared this, but at the Anxiety Disorders Association, and the title of the paper with the psychologist at U of M was Prism versus Prozac. Prism versus Prozac. And so many of my patients are able to withdraw from some of the medicines and get their cognitive functionality back as they feel lighter of spirit and less worried about their next step that they have to take. Agoraphobia is a big thing. There's a guy coming from Minnesota. Jennifer's got to go.
I was just going to say that when patients come back to my office, they feel like they've been touched by Jesus. And some of my partners who refer patients to Debbie going, is she for real? Am I sending these patients to, La La Land, or is this like for real? And all of those patients are getting better, and all of the patients that are doing the traditional thing that we always did before are not. So thank you, Debbie, and continue talking, and I'm going to leave.
Thank you.
I just have one quick story to tell, and so many of you know these stories, but because of the website, because of the internet, because of Google, people have traveled from around the country and the world to the office. And while it makes me happy, it's not the way it should be, and many of you know that our goal is to train our colleagues around the country. But it has also brought the knowledge forward. And so people Google their symptoms, dizzy while driving, up pops the website, and they say, my eyes, this is my vision, and they'll fill out the questionnaire, they press send, it goes right to my phone, wherever it is nearby, and I call them back, and I call everybody back within a day or two if I can, and I talk to them, and I say, this is your score on the questionnaire, you were 45, anything higher than 15 is significant, and I think you can come. And I do my 5-minute cover test, which I'm teaching some of you guys, 5 minutes of covering an eye. The symptoms start to dissipate within 5 minutes. It calms the body. So sharing that knowledge over the internet has been powerful. We have a young man wanting to come from Minnesota. He has been agoraphobic, which is a classic symptom of patients afraid to go out of the house because of how they feel destabilized walking in the open world. And he will be coming. And he was a computer programmer, and he just declined. So we did our 5-minute cover test, and he started crying on the phone. He said, oh my God, it is my eyes. I thought it was my eyes. But he'd been to 5 other doctors. And so you all know these stories. You are those stories. And now you're on the other side. But I just thank you for coming. I'm so grateful for each and every one of you for being here. If we have time to share, as we did in the other room, I hope that we get to do that. Yes. Oh, there's somebody that wants to show you a bottle that you brought. It's a demo bottle. Vicki is in the way back. Vicki, could you stand up? Come on up to the front if you could. Vicki comes to us from Myrtle Beach on a family trip that she left, a reunion.
Gatlinburg.
She hails, Gatlinburg, Tennessee. She actually hails from Indiana. So go ahead.
I got it. 2 weeks before I turned 60, I woke up and my vision was messed up. My vertigo, my gosh, and next thing you know, I'm holding on to the walls to walk to the bathroom or anywhere. Migraines. 15 months I lived that way. I was told to sit in a chair. And it's very hard to do. The dog needs to go out. I can't get up and let her out. I thank my husband, because if it hadn't been for him, I would have been gone a long time ago, because he had to help me in and out of the bathtub, help me get dressed, everything. I couldn't do anything on my own. I went to a neurologist, had tests done. I went to an ears, nose, and throat doctor, had tests done. I went to a balance research center, had tests done. I was in therapy. I was sent to a head pain hospital for 15 days. I left there with prescriptions, which we filled on our way to Dr. Debbie's office. Somebody at the head pain hospital, and I do not know who it was still to this day, made me an appointment with Dr. Debbie. On our way to Dr. Debbie's office, we filled those prescriptions. These are my prescriptions that I left that hospital with. These are narcotics worth a lot of money probably on the street. I did not take because I found my angel with wings, Dr. Debbie. The day I saw her, I was cured. Not totally, completely, because I was still on some medications and needed tweaking, like all of you know, but I left her office cured. I love this woman, and I will do anything I can to spread the word. I keep her business cards in my purse. I pass them out anywhere and everywhere I go. I keep folders that the girls in the office put together for me. I give them to physicians, nurses, people in the beauty shop, anywhere I can, because you people in Michigan are lucky. She's right here. The rest of us have to travel, and we need help down there. We need help in other parts. The whole world needs Dr. Debbie. So spread the word, and like all of you know, she is a godsend. And if it wasn't for her, I was on that suicidal list. Because I couldn't keep putting my husband and my kids, I couldn't go see my grandkids, I couldn't have them over to spend the night, I couldn't fix them breakfast. So my life was over. And if it hadn't been for Dr. Debbie, I think I would have ended it. And these probably would have been what would have done it. So I thank Dr. Debbie.
Okay, so just along those themes, which is what I was going to get to next, is we do have to spread the word. So if you are from out of state and you have an optometrist that you think would be worthy of training, let us know. We've just started our training course. It's just gotten put together because we can't be the only office that's doing this. From a political perspective, in Michigan, there's a note. We have the world's best auto no-fault insurance. We need to maintain that. There's certain politicians that wish to make the insurance companies wealthier by cutting back on our benefits. I think that's a huge mistake, and I would ask all of you to contact your state representative, because it's in the state house at this point in time, and let them know that you think their idea of cutting back on the auto insurance is a terrible idea, and what made them think to do that. It really is a bad idea. Brain Injury Association of Michigan's website, Brain Injury Association, BIAMI.org. If you just go there, they have a link for your representative, and then you just put in your zip code and you can contact them. I called my guy and sent him a letter both. It makes a difference, and this is critical. I'm not a political person, but this hits home when I see all you people coming in here that can right now get the help that in the future might not be able to if this law passes or changes. I want to say that I thank you all for participating with the book. It's been really an amazing project. I know it took a lot of your time to do this, and it was fun getting to know you all on paper, and now it's even more fun to get to know in person when we can put a face with it. So to that end, we are going to set up a camera spot and a video spot in that back corner right there where it says video message. So if you wish to have your picture included in the book, you can email it to me too if you wish, but we'll take your picture today if you want. And we're going to have another edition of the book coming out with all the corrections of the minor errors that we've made. And thank you all for letting me know where the mistakes were. I really appreciate it. And then lastly, we're going to have in the same room back there a video camera, and one of our staff's going to operate it. And if you'd like to leave a message for Dr. Debbie, or if you'd like to leave a message for whoever else, the media, I don't care. If you have a message that you want to give, go ahead and feel free, and we'll have somebody there to turn the camera on for you, and you can give it. And I think that's really all I have to say. So, are there other people that would like to relate a story at this point in time?
Now, first I have to let everybody know, my vision is hugely improved, but Dr. Debbie will understand this. I have tinted contacts in. I wore them because it's a sunny day, and you guys are all really dark. so I can see you, but not real clearly. It was really funny. We had to do some filming with Rick Briggs at the BIAMI, right? There we go. All right, and what we were doing is we were interviewing doctors that helped traumatic brain injury. One of the doctors was Dr. Debbie. And I was kind of excited. I had actually interviewed prior one of her patients with prisms, and I remember thinking, "Gee, that's pretty neat. Could it help me?" And I just kind of dismissed it. I have, just so you know, congenital macular degeneration. My father was born in Vietnam. Was over in Vietnam, and I was born just after. And he was in the Agent Orange spraying, and I was the only child born without the center of my retina. I had to have double cornea transplants. The biggest issue that I had was my eyes would bounce everywhere. I could not control them. Constantly had my finger in them. Terrible headaches from the time I was a little kid. Dizzy. As I got older, I started to lose coordination. I always had great coordination when I was a kid and started to lose it as I got older. And actually started having, I have a really good memory, but I started having memory problems. I started having ADD, ADHD type of symptoms. I really thought I was losing it. And I obviously kept it to myself because what do you say? I was embarrassed. I was 40 years old. So we went to interview Dr. Debbie for this seminar. And she comes up to me and she says, "I've been watching you." She says, "Your eyes are out of alignment." And I wanted to laugh at her. I said, "Lady, I'm legally blind. Of course my eyes are out of alignment. What are you talking about?" And she said, "I can help you." And I did not buy it. I just thought, "All right, how much do you want?" And I said, and I figured this was going to end it. I said, "I don't have insurance." She said, "I don't care." And I said, "Really?" And I went to see her, and she said, and I couldn't believe this woman was going to see me, and I thought she just must not realize that, And she said, "Oh, by the way, if I fix your eyes, your feet will uncross." And she put the prisms on me and made me walk up and down, like she does. And when we got the thing right, it was, you guys, it's amazing. It's like an entirely different world for someone who can't see. And I really have been legally blind my whole life. I was actually, because of the way my eyes were, I was raised as though I had no sight. Back in the 70s, they didn't work with you as though you were visually impaired. You were either blind or sighted. So I was taught to read Braille when I was 3. Had this happened, I never would have learned Braille. Never. I can read. I'm learning now. I have to use these little kids' cards because I'm learning what things are. Animals, fruit, vegetables. I can see people's faces. God, sorry. When I get up close to you, I can't from here, obviously, because I'm never going to regain my retina. But if I get within a few feet, I can see people's eyes. I can see the way they're looking. I can see if they roll their eyes. I can see the color of their eyes. I have some color deficiency, but I'm pretty good now. Believe it or not, I do not know the logic to this, but I've gained some color vision back. That there's no logic there. But this is a side that I don't think you guys are all, I understand where you're coming from, but low vision is I never would have guessed that this would help low vision. And I so hope, I understand that they're hiring a low vision doctor, and I so hope that you guys pursue this because I can't be the only one. And what people don't understand is when you have this issue, you put the prisms on, it's half the battle for a low vision patient because then you've got to teach the brain everything over again. And when you have no help, there's nobody. It's like living in no man's land where I live. I'm in Muskegon. And it's, they just, there's no brain doctors. There's nobody to help me. And it's like my brain is moving slower than my eyes. It's amazing, you guys. I just want to keep that light open. I want them to keep pursuing this. And I want them to really, really hammer it into the low vision field. Because you could really, truly be changing the lives of people who honestly don't see. And you really, truly can bring vision to people who do.
So thank you for that nice introduction to our new optometrist, Major Ferrens, who is No. Yeah, come here. Just for a second, I just want to say hi. Okay. So she works in that area.
Really?
Yeah.
How cool.
How cool is that?
I heard about her.
Well, there she is.
Hi.
And she starts Monday. So
I gotta talk to you.
we need to talk. So, all right, I just wanted to say that was perfect.
Thank you.
And who do we have next up?
Holly.
I have a question.
Yes.
And if you've addressed this already, tell me, but this makes so much sense, common sense to me. I've seen Debbie's work with my daughter, who wasn't in a car accident, but had issues of nausea from birth. What's being done to train neurologists, other primary care doctors, other ophthalmologists, and other optometrists to this problem that seems very common, not just with TBI victims or stroke victims, but kids with ADD. What's being done? Because, I mean, it makes so much sense. They're your eyes, for God's sake. They affect everything.
So the short.
Let me just do a quick one. Let me just say one thing. My husband has gone part-time. As an ER physician, he's gone part-time so that he can do the tireless work that needs to happen to get this into the journals, to partner with a neurologist, to partner with a reading specialist, to partner with a low visit. So we're all scientists. In the end, this is not voodoo. This is optics. But it was a lost science. So to me, the goal is to get it published in journals where it will be respected, not just an interesting news story on Channel 7, but really in the literature. I think that Arthur, I will give him so much credit. He kept saying, Debbie, you got to get it into the journals, and I get that. We had some backlash. When the Free Press piece hit, I was so excited, but then we got a letter from the ophthalmologist that said, how dare you publish this junk science? How dare you? And the beautiful medical reporter, Pat Anstead, Pat sent them a letter and said, she's helping people, and she is doing a clinical trial. And by the way, what's your answer for dizziness and headaches? And so touche for Pat, but I think it really has to be scientifically published, and I think because it's optics, but it's a lost science.
This is just a quick question. It may be a naive question. Did you make the diagnosis of vertical heterophoria, or did it exist and you've changed the way you work?
So vertical heterophoria was figured out in 1887 by a strabismus surgeon in Philadelphia. And when you guys get a chance, I will bring the book out because it's just a cherished piece of work, because this gentleman understood the condition. He's the father of vertical heterophoria. But I didn't know he existed. It was only when my husband began doing the research. In his work, his prism was too strong. And like most optometrists and ophthalmologists, the toolbox doesn't really work. It's assuming you see double, and then they'll put the prism in. My patients don't often see double. They see shadows around everything. So thanks to my father and the freedom of creating lenses, we actually created a prototype, a set that doesn't exist anywhere else. This has to be a toolbox given to optometrists and ophthalmologists. So there's a lot of work to do. So if that answers... Yeah.
PM&R Journal. So that was a peer-reviewed article, which was really good.
Yeah.
And that was in 2010. And I have data now for 9 papers that I need to actually sit down and write. That's why I went down to half-time. We've got our data that needs to go into the neurology literature with regards to headaches, the TBI literature once again, the anxiety literature, because that's psychiatric, so that's all new. Reading, learning disabilities, because that's all new. So we got a lot of, and then of course optometry.
So, and then I would like to say that my father, Paul Feimer, Dad, raise your hand. I don't know if you can see my dad. My dad gave me the freedom to spend as much time as I needed to with patients, and that was the gift of all. Because I could say, how do I figure out this population? Arthur was sending me these dizzy patients I had never seen before. How was I supposed to help them? And so having that gift of time, having the gift of a lab where we could grind lenses, it really was organic. It evolved over time. It's now 17 years. But as it spread, it began to be a science that we realized had to be moved forward. And that's when the publication started. So the lenses that I use are not really available in most offices. We're going to teach my colleagues. We're setting up an institute. I'm going to start with my out-of-staters. We have 400 people who have traveled from 47 states. And I'm not happy about that. I'm happy they've come for help, but there needs to be somebody in Indiana and Ohio and Pennsylvania and California. And
I'm a medical speech-language pathologist, and my whole patient population is traumatic brain injury. Are you finding any connection to cognition with...
I mean, my patients can really talk to you. And Polly, you know, this might be a great time, because you're, Holly's, she'll tell you her background.
Hi, I'm Holly Bellion, and I teach in academia, so you probably want me to hold this away, because I will project to the back of the room. I do physical therapy, and I have for 27 years, so I'm treating those TBI patients, right? I'm working with all these people who come in with dizziness, and they've been to see all these doctors, and no one is helping them, and they're falling down. And then I get hit on the head with a TV at work. One of those that swings out from the wall in an emergency situation. Someone codes, we go down, I'm under the bed, I'd move the TV out of the way, come up real fast, nurse swings the TV, and boom, I'm down. Missed maybe a couple hours work, that was it, was right back at it. Go the next day and I'm treating a patient, and the next thing you know, I'm sitting on the floor in front of their bed going, what's wrong? I went through all the doctors, went to the ENTs, yeah, I had BPPV, totally different than what you get with the vertical heterophoria. No one could make me better, so I had to quit work, because how do I work with people with balance problems? How do I fix them if I can't, you know, if I'm doing this while I'm walking my patients? It's just not a good thing. They look at me like, okay, I'm better off than you are. Why are you working with me? I had to quit work. I've done this for a long time. Division I schools I've worked at. I teach in academia. I've worked at Vanderbilt. I've worked with professional teams, football. I had to give all that up. That's really, really, really difficult. And the whole time I'm going, I work in the medical community. Why can none of you tell me what's wrong with me? Search and search and search. A friend at church finds Dr. Debbie, calls and says, do you know about this? Nope. We think you need to go see her because I think she can make you better. And she did. Amazing difference. Let me tell you, I wish I could go back 27 years to all those patients that I too couldn't make better, and I had to say, I don't know what's wrong with you. Right? Now, how do I get the science out there? I do a technique in physical therapy that is way out there on the outer limits, and all the orthopedic surgeons I work with look at me and go, no, that is not science. It's not yet. We're working on getting it there, same as Dr. Debbie is. They'll send me their family members, and they'll say, go see Holly for that voodoo thing that she does. Okay? I make them better, but they don't want to tell anybody else about it because there's no science behind it. These guys that are working on getting it done is going to make a tremendous difference to getting this out and getting it to the other states. I still am working part-time teaching, can't go back yet to physical therapy. Dr. Mark, if he needs help doing that research, I'll be the first one there at his desk saying, hand it over, we'll start getting it out there and getting it printed and published.
You're on.
Yeah, I mean, seriously, it's right up my alley. It's what I do. And we do have to get the word out there. I can't say that enough for you guys to say, get out there, start telling people, handing business cards. We do it. I live with a law professor. She sent law students over who are struggling. From living with me, it's like, hey, I know what's wrong with you. And she sent them over, and they've been helped, and they've been able to stay in law school. The pride that you will be able to take in helping other people is tremendous, tremendous. So take advantage of that. And I learned something new today because I have a sister who's legally blind, low vision, has been since birth. She's an albino. She started having problems after she hit 45. They thought she had MS. They put her on all these MS medications. She's injecting herself every night at 10 o'clock. She did not have MS. They still don't know exactly what's wrong with her. And I called her and said, I do. You need to come up. You need to come over and see Dr. Debbie. I think she can help you. So just keep passing the word out there and keep learning more and more and more. Thank you.
I just want to say that we haven't mentioned the soldiers. We haven't mentioned the veterans. And when a soldier is hit in a blast injury, it is like something hitting them over the head. It is like an auto accident. I have two amazing veterans here today. One who drove 10 hours from Pennsylvania. Michelle Darman, can you please stand up for me? Michelle. She is a Purple Heart recipient, and she and my other veteran, Dan, can you wave your hand, Dan? Dan's my other veteran, and I want both of them to tell you their stories because they have served our country, and they deserve the very best care, and to give them that chance to be the people they need to be is so important. So I thought maybe Michelle and Dan can share their stories. Thank you.
I don't know where to start. I deployed to Iraq in 2005. in the spring. We hit our first roadside bomb in September. I went to see a medic. They didn't send me any further than that. Put back out on duty. In that's September, October, November, I was involved in a Humvee accident. I was hit on the head again and went back to duty. In December, another roadside bomb. I lost half my team. 6 weeks later, I finally got medevaced out of Iraq. Did an MRI of my spine. I was having some issues. Sent me back for an MRI of my head, and the neurologist wanted to know when I had my first stroke. I don't know. He said, well, your MRI shows you had 3. So they're thinking it was from the 3 concussions from the head injuries that I've had. I was sent to Walter Reed, where I spent the next 2.5 years learning how to walk and talk and read and write. Unfortunately, I didn't get the reading and writing part. I saw lots of eye doctors, neurology, nothing wrong. Kept telling them my right eye feels like it's an inch higher than my left eye. That's impossible. It can't happen. I fell down a lot. I have probably permanent scars on my knees. I broke my arm once from a fall. I took a lot of medication. I had migraines almost daily. And I did an interview one day for NPR, National Public Radio. And Dr. Debbie happened to be listening. And she called my father and left a message. And she called several more times, and he said, you should call her and just call and talk to her. So I did. And here I am. See, it's 8 years since that first bomb blast. Within a few months of seeing Dr. Debbie, I gave up all my medications. And I haven't fallen down. And I've only had 1 migraine since then, and that's because I got hit on the head again really bad. And she helped me again. So she's absolutely amazing, and she is truly my angel.
And Michelle drove 10 hours, and her father chatted with her to keep her company from Hershey, Pennsylvania. I'd like to introduce Dan March.
Hi, everyone. My name is Dan March. I was deployed to Afghanistan in 2005. In the spring of 2006, I was on foot patrol with a few guys, and their vehicle was hit by an IED. From that blast, I was injured, and partially broke my neck, damaged my back. I ended up with a closed head injury. I stayed in country for the rest of my deployment, which was in the middle of the summer of 2006 is when my team came back home to the States. I was suffering from migraines between 5 and 6 times a week, walking around with a cane, all the classic symptoms. I was at a Brain Injury Association conference, which was actually my second one, and was interviewed by Dr. Nathan Zasler, which is from Virginia. And he had Dr. Debbie and her awesome team come up to grill me, seriously grill me in front of a lot of people. And I, from there, went to see her, and I ended up with prism glasses. And when I walked into her office, I was being driven around by my wife, walking with a cane, and staying out of everybody's way. I couldn't stay out of my own way because I was running into things and tripping and falling and everything. But I ended up walking out of that. I ended up walking out that day with glasses and with no cane. So I owe a lot to you, your husband, your dad, everyone here. So thank you very much.
Maybe one last story if anybody's interested. Hearing no further. All right, good. So now this is Maury. Okay. This is Dr. Maury Dubin. He's the oldest living practitioner of binocular vision, neurovisual optometry, we call it.
I joined Vision Specialists in Michigan 7 years ago. I got a call from Dr. Paul, asked me if I'd like to work at Vision Specialist. They pulled me out of retirement. I went down for a job interview on a Sunday in their office in Birmingham. Dr. Paul and Dr. Debbie were there interviewing me. And I'd like to see a showing of hands. How many people here at the age of 84 went down for a job interview? Anyway, I got the job that day. And I started work. That was 7 years ago. And if your math is working, I'm 91. At any rate, I asked Dr. Debbie, how long can I work yet? She says, as long as this is working, as long as my body's working, you can work. And that's what I plan on doing. One other thing I'd like to say. Dr. Debbie called me because she knew I prescribed Prism for many years. But I didn't prescribe Prism the way she prescribed Prism. So that's the basis for the call. But what I learned with Dr. Debbie is like a whole new world from a scientific perspective. We heard the patient's perspective today a lot, but this is the scientific perspective. Debbie really took Prism and brought it to new heights, new levels. You all heard today that this was known way back at the turn of the century, and I don't mean 2000, of course. And why wasn't surgery successful? Because it wasn't, you can't be finite in adjusting the muscles in the eye surgically. Prism, you have to be a very finite amount of Prism, and therefore it just didn't work. Anyway, I hope to work another 20. Wow.
All right, yeah.
My question is, in the case of a traumatic brain injury, how did the prisms work, or what is the problem with the brain injury that causes vision, where somebody else might have, their eye out a little higher because of bone structure? How does it work differently that way with the brain?
That's a really good question. So it turns out that both of them have as a common cause this eye misalignment. One you're born with, and the other one, when you get your brain injury, we feel that somewhere along the line between the inner ear, the brain stem, and then all the nerves that go back and forth between them to the eye muscles too, something's getting damaged. We know there's diffuse injury when you get a traumatic brain injury. So that's probably what's happening. Either one of the main structures or the connections are getting damaged, and it's sending the eyes slightly askew vertically. And now you're just like the people that were born with their eye sockets a little bit higher one than the other. And after that, it's the same. Treatment's the same. They work the same. They get better the same. Yes?
I am a patient of the oldest practicing doctor. And I am lucky. I want to answer the question about TBI. I had traumatic brain injury. I fell on the same day twice, backwards, on cement. And I ended up with my head stuck on my atlas. The only way I could turn was whole body. I was before having the traumatic brain injury, I was a very high-octane engineer, working 10, 12 hours a day, also twice a week, and on Saturday I would go after work to work as a healer in a doctor's office. Strangely enough, I was working quite a bit with brain injury, so I know what I had to do. And I had the connections in the alternative field to deal with it, and I knew I had to address it immediately. No one could help me. I was in horrible, horrible headaches for a year and a half. I couldn't even lie down in bed. I would fall asleep continuously, unexpectedly. I slept at night sitting in a lazy boy because the pressure in my brain would become even worse if it was possible. It took me many years I had the best alternative practitioners. First of all, when I went for test, they couldn't see anything in the normal testing. I think about 20% of the traumatic brain injuries are actually diagnosed, and the rest just appear as completely different illnesses. I have seen people diagnosed with all sorts of stuff, and they actually have brain injuries. From hormonal problems, to ADD, to anxiety, to abusive behavior, you name it, and they don't know that is actually a brain injury. And what happened in my case with the brain injury, the muscle in my eye, because of the injury to my nerves, was too weak, and my eyes were just moving around continuously. So it took 3 times to come, several hours working with Dr. Dubin. He literally had patience with me to figure out what glasses I needed. And interestingly enough, I got some medication a couple of months after I got the glasses, and my glasses weren't working anymore because of the medication, some cholesterol medication. So I was able to make the connection, drop the medication, and I was back to the original glasses. So once you have the traumatic brain injury, even medications will affect you, and people don't realize. The traumatic brain injury caused me from being a high-octane engineer, working as a healer, to not being able to do anything, falling asleep all the time. I was falling asleep even while driving. My driver's license was taken away. Going to the mall, it was impossible. Driving, even if my husband was driving the car, I was nauseous. I had to have my eyes closed because a change of light, especially when we were going and trees were on the side of the road, the change from light to dark was just impossible to take. It's terrible suffering. By the time I got back, I got to come here, I couldn't, from a person, you can imagine if I was a high-octane engineer that I had to learn all the time. I was a computer design engineer, and that takes continuous learning in order to keep up with the profession. I couldn't read anymore. From reading constantly, learning constantly, I couldn't remember anything. I couldn't read. The lines would jump. They were shadowed. By the time I got here, I couldn't thread a needle, couldn't read anything, couldn't watch TV. It was too exhausting to watch TV. So I didn't know what to do with my life. My life was finished. And after I got the glasses, here I am. I am still threading needles. How many years? 4 years later? So I thank you very much, Dr. Debbie. And thank you, Dr. Dubin.
So just a couple quick reminders at this point in time. We're going to go ahead and break. We're going to take the white chairs and fold them up and put them off to the side somewhere. Our staff will help us with that. We're going to go ahead. There's going to be books for signing. Yes?
Could I ask a stupid question?
No stupid questions. They're all good questions. Go ahead.
My daughter got us involved, Heidi Wire, you know.
Oh.
And she came all the way from Texas. And she introduced us then to Dr. Debbie, and my wife also has glasses. I'm here at the outside, and I say to myself, these are eyeglasses. What's the difference between these glasses and a prism? I understand a prism, they can use a telescope and so on like that, but it's all glass. So why is this glass different called a prism?
So real quickly, the way the glasses are constructed, you know what standard eyeglasses are. Everybody's got those. We know that. So the difference between these is that we'll grind the lenses a little bit differently so that the top of one's a little bit thicker and the bottom of the same one is a little bit thinner. And that gets you the prismatic effect in the vertical plane. And then the other eye, usually for vertical heterophoria, it's ground in the opposite direction, thicker and then thinner. No, all glasses are ground the same at the top and the bottom. So you have a sphere that you're looking out of. We want to put a little bit of bend to the sphere, bend to the light, and that's how you grind the prism into the lens.
So is this, when you do for long distance, short distance, that's all ground in there?
So there's three.
That's not prism, that's just a...
Correct. That's a correction for far. And then for near, and if your eye happens to be out of round, there's an astigmatism correction. And that everybody does. That's pretty standard. What we're doing different with the prism is on top of that, we overlay the prismatic correction.
Is that a different technical glass?
No, a standard, you can get those made anywhere.
I can show you, after the talk, some prisms to show you how it bends light. I'll show it to you.
Yeah.
Is it Dr. Stork? She did not wear glasses today. Is there a recovery, so to speak, that you eventually, the muscles begin to work differently, that you don't need?
No, not usually. So what we call it is, you have to put terms in this. This is kind of cool. So when you develop a field, you get to name everything. So Dr. Doble came up with the concept of this being a visual orthotic device. So we break that down. If you've got one leg that's shorter than the other, you got a heel lift, that's an orthosis or an orthotic. So this happens to be for your vision. So it's a visual orthotic device. And you should really wear it all the time. Arguably, it's like a crutch, but without it, you're straining so much. Why would you want to do this? And plus, it gives you symptoms. So we're able to incorporate it right into the glasses. The amount's so small, nobody can tell, and it's great.
And I wanted to say, too, that I wear the prism lenses. I was just trying to be cute today.
I was very worried about her, but I
was just trying to be cute, but I do wear them all the time.
We have a way of doing it with contact lenses, and it's not nearly as good as the glasses are. The glasses are really the superior vision correction device. So if you got cosmetic issues, you're going to be performing on stage or some such thing for a temporary period of time, we can rig some contact lenses, but they're not that good. Yes.
Like your feet orthotics, you have to wear them in your gym shoes or your high back shoes. Every once in a while, you want to be a pretty girl in sandals, so you suffer for the day.
I wanted to say thank you for coming, and I want you to be able to move around. I know I'm getting a little bit antsy, so let's begin to eat our desserts, guys.
Remember that. Hold on one more second. Yeah, book signing is going to happen here. If you want us to sign your book, and we'll also get them to purchase here, that's fine. If you're going to give a video message, back corner. If you want a picture taken for the book participants, back corner. That's it. Thank you very much.